How does Christianity affect salvation? Well, for salvation, you must have a covenant with the Most High, with Yahuwah our Elohim. Christianity does not have a covenant with the Father Yahuwah. In order to have a covenant with Yahuwah, there are certain things that you need to do. You first of all need to call him by his sacred name, and you must keep his sacred name set apart. That is Torah. They need to keep the redemption plan, which is the scriptural feasts, and they must keep the seventh-day Sabbath. This is the sign of the covenant that Yahuwah has with his people. So who are those that have a covenant with Yahuwah? Well, Yahuwah says in his word in Romans 9 verse 4, who are the children of Israel? Right, who are they? Let's see. To whom is the adoption, and the esteem, and the covenants, and the giving of the Torah, and the worship, and the promises. Those who have that are the children of Israel, and they have a covenant with Yahuwah. There is no mention of Christianity in there. So how do they miss it then? Well, because they have done away with the covenant of Yahuwah. The first covenant, which they've also done away, they call the Old Testament. We read in Exodus 24 verse 8, and Moshe took the blood and sprinkled it on the people and said, see the blood of the covenant which is Yahuwah has made with you concerning all these words. The blood covenant for the forgiveness of sin. The Sabbath is a sign of this covenant. We read in Exodus 31:16, and the children of Israel shall guard the Sabbath, to perform the Sabbath throughout their generations as an everlasting covenant. Everlasting would suggest as long as time exists, that is today, until Yahushua's return. The everlasting covenant became the renewed covenant. It was not changed to a New Testament, but Yahuwah did make an alteration. It is a bit like you buy a car and you drive the car and the tires start wearing out. You replace the tires. You did not replace the car by replacing the tires. In Jeremiah 31:31 we see the days are coming, declares Yahuwah, when I shall make a renewed covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Yehudah. Take note, the house of Israel and the house of Yehudah, the two houses, which refers to the two-house teaching, which makes up Israel altogether. And this, what we read in Jeremiah 31:31, is fulfilled in Hebrews 8 verse 8. For finding fault with them, this them is not the Torah, it was the people who could not keep Torah. Hebrews 8 verse 8 again. For finding fault with them, he says, see the days are coming, says Yahuwah, when I shall conclude with the house of Israel and with the house of Yehudah a renewed covenant. Them being the people of Israel who didn't keep the Torah is the problem, the people. The Torah will always be perfect because that is what Yahuwah put in place for us. Yahuwah makes no errors. So the renewed covenant is Yahushua in us. Hebrews 10 verse 10. By that desire we have been set apart through the offering of the body of Yahushua Messiah once and for all. His chosen, his people have been set apart through the offering of Yahushua, his blood sacrifice. So the Old Testament, what the Christians call, which is the Tanakh, has not become non-existent. It just means it flowed through into the renewed covenant. And the reason I say it that way is because nothing changed. In the Tanakh, in the days of Moshe, they needed an animal sacrifice, a blood sacrifice, a perfect lamb they required for the sacrifice of sins. Yahushua, the perfect lamb, became our blood sacrifice for the forgiveness of sins. They needed a high priest to make atonement for them before Yahuwah. Yahusha, our high priest, makes atonement for us before Yahuwah. In other words, nothing changed. We see in Hebrews 10, verse 11 and 12, and indeed, every priest stands day by day doing service and repeatedly offering the same slaughter offerings which are never able to take away sins. But he, having offered one slaughter offering for sins for all time, sat down at the right hand of Elohim. Yahusha is our high priest that atones for us and our blood sacrifice for the forgiveness of sins. Nothing changed. The gospel message. He set apart ones made perfect through the renewed covenant. That is the gospel message. The gospel message is not that you have a license to sin. Grace is not a license to sin. Grace is the power of Yahusha in us that we can overcome sin. Set apart, perfect before Yahuwah. Listen to Hebrews 10:14. For by one offering he has perfected for all time those who are being set apart, made perfect. Yahusha mentioned after he taught the Torah in Matthew 5, verse 58, he concludes with that we must be perfect as our Father is perfect. Why? Because he can only dwell in us when we cleanse and pure before Yahuwah. And perfect before Yahuwah is Torah obedience. Now, this Yahusha in us is a secret. The secret that through Yahusha we are perfect before Yahuwah. We read this in Colossians 1 verse 27 and 28. To whom Elohim desired to make known what are the riches of the esteem of this secret among the nations where the Israelites are scattered, which is Messiah in you, the expectancy of esteem. What does this mean? Whom we announce, warning every man and teaching every man in all wisdom, in order to present every man perfect in Messiah Yahusha. Excuse me. So, where does this put the Christian or the church? Well, Yahuwah has the following to say to them. In Isaiah 24 verse 5. For the earth has been defiled under its inhabitants, because they have transgressed the Torah, changed, Torah is plural for Torah, changed the law, and broken the everlasting covenant. This Daniel confirmed in 7:25, and it speaks words against the Most High, and it wears out the set-apart ones of the Most High, and it intends to change appointed times, which is the scriptural feasts, and law, which is the Torah. So, what is the result of that? We read in Romans 1:28, and it's best to read all of that chapter to get a better picture, but for the sake of time, I picked two verses, 28 and 31. Romans 1:28, and even as they did not think it worthwhile to possess the knowledge of Elohim, Elohim gave them over to a worthless mind to do what is improper. And then Yahuwah lists a whole lot of sins, and then it carries on with without discernment, which is one of them, covenant breakers, which is those who do not keep the Sabbath, who do not keep the Torah, unloving, unforgiving, ruthless. So that is where Christianity will fall under. Those who think it is worthless to possess the knowledge of Yahuwah. The New Testament is not a license to sin. On the contrary, the renewed covenant is the power of Yahusha living in us so that we do not sin. Romans 6 verse 1 and 2. What then shall we say? Shall we continue in sin? Let favor increase? No, let it not be. How shall we who died to sin still live in it? Sin should not rule over you. Romans 6 verse 14. For sin shall not rule over you, for you are not under the law, but under favor. Can you see? The favor is Yahusha living in us. 6 verse 15, what then? Shall we sin because we are not under Torah, but under favor? Let it not be. So the conclusion of the error of the Christian theology, they done away with the Torah of Yahuwah, which is our guide and our protector for the children of Israel. They chose to obey the false theology and traditions of the church instead of the law of Yahuwah, which is sin. Yahuwah describes sin. 1 John 3 verse 4. Everyone doing sin also does lawlessness, and sin is lawlessness. What is lawlessness? Without law. Yahushua's words for those in Matthew 7:23, and then I shall declare to them, I never knew you. Depart from me, you who work lawlessness. If you love Yahuwah, you will obey his commands, just as Yahushua obeyed the Father's commands. We read in John 15:10, if you guard my commands, you shall stay in my love, even as I have guarded my Father's commands and stay in his love. Shalom.